My name is Hannah, and this is the story of how I poured my soul into saving my father's bakery. The business he built with his bare hands, only to discover that my own brother tried to sell it behind my back for millions. It's the story of sacrifice, betrayal, and the moment I learned that sometimes family can be your biggest enemy. Growing up, the bakery wasn't just a business, it was our second home. My father opened it before I was born, a tiny shop on the corner with cracked tile floors, the smell of fresh bread wafting through the streets, and a bell over the door that jingled every time a customer walked in. To me, that bell was the sound of comfort, safety, and love. I remember sitting on the counter as a little girl, swinging my legs while my dad kneaded dough. He'd smile at me and say, "Hannah, this bakery is in your blood. Every loaf we bake is a piece of our story." My brother, Lucas, never felt that way. He was older than me by 3 years and he hated the bakery. He hated the early mornings, the flour dust that clung to our clothes, the long hours my father worked. While I was eager to help mix batter or ring up customers, Lucas would sulk in the corner, muttering about how he couldn't wait to get out of there. As we grew older, the difference only widened. I loved the bakery more with each passing year, while Lucas distanced himself. He wanted business suits and big deals, not flour-stained aprons. And my parents, blinded by their love for him, let him drift away, always excusing his absence. Then came the years of decline. Competition grew fiercer. Big chains moved in, offering cheaper bread and fancier pastries. My father's health began to falter. His back ached. His hands stiffened with arthritis. My mom begged him to slow down, but he refused. "The bakery is who I am," he would say. By the time I finished college, the bakery was drowning in debt. Bills piled up on the kitchen table. My father's once proud eyes were shadowed with exhaustion. My mom whispered about selling, but my dad shook his head. "This bakery is our legacy. We'll find a way." And so I stepped in. I could have chased my own career, gone into marketing like I planned, but I couldn't watch the bakery die. I couldn't let my father's life's work crumble into dust. So I rolled up my sleeves and said, "I'll help. I'll run it." My father looked at me with tears in his eyes. "Are you sure, Hannah? It's a heavy burden." I smiled, even though my stomach churned with fear. "I'm sure. This bakery raised me. Now it's my turn to raise it." Lucas didn't even show up to that conversation. He was too busy chasing money somewhere else. When he did call, it was to scoff. "Why waste your life on that dying shop? Let it go, Hannah." But I didn't. I took over the bakery, and for months, my life became a blur of 4 a.m. mornings, aching muscles, and sleepless nights. I studied recipes, redesigned the menu, cut costs where I could. I begged suppliers for better rates, smiled at every customer like they were my only one, and plastered flyers all over town. There were days I thought I wouldn't make it, days when I stood in the back room, hands covered in flour and tears streaming down my face, whispering, "Dad, I don't know if I can do this." But then I'd see his face light up when a customer complimented the bread. I'd see him sit at a table, watching me with pride, and I'd remember why I was fighting. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Word spread about the new bakery. People came back. Sales rose. We weren't rich, but we were surviving, and every step forward felt like a victory. Lucas, he barely called. He didn't help. He didn't ask. He just lived his shiny life, while I poured mine into the ovens and cash registers. I thought I was building something for my father, for our family, for us, but what I didn't know was that I was building something Lucas would try to steal. The first few months after I took over the bakery were some of the hardest of my life. Every morning, I woke up at 4 a.m. to fire up the ovens, knead dough, and prep pastries before the sun rose. My father still tried to help, but his hands ached too much, his back too stiff. So I told him to sit at the front, greet customers, and tell his stories. People loved hearing him talk about the old days. It gave the bakery heart, something the chain stores could never compete with. But heart alone doesn't pay bills. I studied every single receipt, every line of the budget. I cut waste, changed suppliers, and introduced new items. Instead of just plain bread and muffins, I added specialty loaves, gluten-free options, and decorated cakes. I started posting on social media, sharing photos of steaming bread, my dad smiling behind the counter, and customers enjoying their favorite pastries. Slowly, people began to notice. Still, there were days the register barely had enough cash to cover the electricity. I often skipped meals just to make sure we could pay our flour supplier. My clothes smelled permanently of yeast and sugar, my hands raw from constant scrubbing. And yet, despite the exhaustion, there was joy. Every time a customer came back and said, "This is the best bread I've had in years," my heart soared. Every time someone posted about us online, I felt hope. Every time my dad patted my shoulder and whispered, "I'm proud of you, Hannah," I found the strength to keep going. Lucas, meanwhile, remained absent. Oh, he'd call once in a while, usually to brag about his new car, his trips, his business deals. He'd ask, "So, how's the little bakery?" with that condescending tone that made my blood boil, but he never once offered to help. I didn't care. I told myself I didn't need him, and slowly my work paid off. One Saturday morning we had a line out the door. People chatted happily as they waited for sourdough, cinnamon rolls, and fresh croissants. I looked around, flour dust in my hair, apron stained, and realized we were alive. The bakery was alive. Word spread. Local newspapers wrote about us. Food bloggers stopped by and raved. Within a year, sales had doubled. The debts that once buried us were slowly being paid off. I felt like I could finally breathe. But it wasn't just money. It was community. The bakery became a gathering place again, neighbors catching up over coffee, kids picking out cookies, older folks sitting for hours with their newspapers. My father glowed with pride, telling anyone who would listen that his daughter had saved his dream. And I believed it. I thought the bakery was safe. I thought our family legacy was secure. But then the cracks began to show. One afternoon, Lucas showed up unannounced. He strolled in wearing an expensive suit, sunglasses perched on his head, looking like he didn't belong in the warm, flour-dusted world of the bakery. Customers glanced at him curiously. My father's smile faltered. Well, Lucas said, sweeping his gaze around. "Looks like you've done more with this place than I expected." His words stung. He didn't say, "I'm proud of you." He didn't say, "Great job." Just, surprised that I had managed anything at all. I forced a smile. "Nice of you to finally stop by." He smirked. "I've been busy. Real business. You know." Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. Over the next few weeks, Lucas started visiting more often. At first, I thought maybe he was finally interested in the bakery. He asked questions about revenue, costs, suppliers, but the way he asked, not with curiosity, but with calculation, unsettled me. Then I overheard him one day, talking on the phone outside. "Yeah, it's prime property, historic value, great location, easily worth millions?" My blood ran cold. I wanted to believe I misheard. I wanted to believe he was talking about something else, but deep down, I knew. Lucas wasn't here because he cared about the bakery. He was here because he saw dollar signs. And in his eyes, I wasn't the one who had saved it. I was just the fool who had rebuilt it, so he could cash out. The bakery was thriving in ways I never thought possible. We had lines most mornings, regulars who became like family, and enough cash flow to not only pay off debts but also start upgrading equipment. For the first time in years, my father slept peacefully, no longer haunted by unpaid bills. He would sit by the window with his coffee, smiling as he watched neighbors walk in, saying, "This is what I dreamed of, Hannah, you brought it back." I should have been celebrating. And I did, for a while. But every time Lucas walked through the doors in his polished shoes and tailored suits, my joy dimmed a little. He didn't belong here. Yet he acted like he owned the place. He'd shake hands with customers, pat my father on the back, and talk about our bakery as if he'd ever lifted a single sack of flour. One afternoon, he cornered me in the back. "You've done good work here," he said casually, glancing at the ledger on my desk. "But let's be real, this bakery's worth way more than just bread and muffins." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" "The location," he said, pacing like he was giving a pitch. "Prime real estate. Developers would kill for it. We're sitting on millions, Hannah. Millions. You should think bigger." I felt my chest tighten. "This isn't just property, Lucas. It's Dad's legacy. It's our family." He smirked. "Family doesn't pay the bills. Money does. And money talks louder than bread." I turned away, my hands trembling. "We're not selling." He didn't argue. He just gave me that smug smile and walked out, leaving a chill behind him. From then on, I noticed subtle things. Calls he'd take outside, long conversations hushed when I walked by, strangers in suits stopping in and shaking his hand. One night, after closing, I found a folder he'd left behind on the counter. Inside were glossy pamphlets from a real estate firm. On the cover, development opportunities in historic districts. My stomach dropped. I wanted to confront him, but part of me clung to denial. Maybe it was just research. Maybe he was curious. Maybe I was imagining the worst. After all, he was my brother, He wouldn't really betray us, would he? But then came the night I stayed late, working on inventory. The bakery was dark except for the glow of my laptop. That's when I heard voices outside the back door. I froze, listening. Yes, it's turnkey, fully renovated, profitable, prime location. We're talking at least 3 million. Easy, Lucas's voice said. My heart stopped. Another voice, deeper, replied, and your sister, won't she fight it? Lucas laughed. She doesn't matter. She thinks she runs it, but legally, it's still in Dad's name. And Dad trusts me. When the offer comes, I'll make sure he signs. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. He wasn't just thinking about it, he was planning it. He was ready to erase everything I had sacrificed, everything my father had built. With the stroke of a pen, I wanted to burst out the door and scream at him, but instead, I stayed frozen in the dark, tears streaming down my face. My hands clenched into fists. When he left, I collapsed onto the floor, shaking. My own brother, the same brother who mocked me for saving the bakery, who never lifted a finger, was now trying to sell it behind my back, for millions. The next morning, I tried to tell my dad. I sat across from him at the kitchen table, my voice trembling as I said, Dad, Lucas is trying to sell the bakery. I heard him last night. But my father shook his head, his eyes tired. Hannah, you must have misunderstood. Lucas wouldn't do that. He's my son. I felt the sting of betrayal all over again. Even with proof, even with everything I had given, my father still couldn't believe Lucas was capable of something so cruel. That's when I realized. If I wanted to protect the bakery, I couldn't rely on my father. I couldn't rely on trust. I had to protect it myself. I wiped my tears, straightened my shoulders, and whispered to myself, if Lucas wants a fight, he'll get one, but he won't win. After overhearing Lucas's plan, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, heart racing, mind replaying his words. 3 million, she doesn't matter. I'll make sure Dad signs. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. I had worked myself to the bone, rebuilding the bakery, brick by brick, loaf by loaf. I had sacrificed my career, my time, my health, all for my father's dream. And Lucas thought he could just swoop in, sell it, and pocket the profit like I was nothing. No, not this time. The next morning, I called a lawyer. I explained everything. The debt I had cleared, the work I had done, the whispers I overheard. She listened patiently and then said words that gave me a lifeline. If you've been running the bakery, you have leverage, especially if you can prove your financial contributions and improvements. And if your father is being pressured, we can make sure he doesn't sign away his rights. I felt hope flicker in my chest. For months, I had fought to save the bakery from debt. Now I was fighting to save it from my own brother. I began gathering proof receipts of payments I made, contracts with suppliers, renovation invoices, social media posts showing me managing the bakery, customer testimonials. I built a case, piece by piece, showing that I wasn't just helping out, I was the one keeping the bakery alive. Meanwhile, Lucas became bolder. He started bringing friends into the bakery, slick men in suits, who eyed the building like vultures. He spoke loudly about development opportunities, making sure I heard. My stomach twisted each time, but I kept quiet, knowing I had to move strategically. Then one evening, I followed him. I saw him walk into a downtown office building and slip into a conference room with real estate developers. I snapped photos from across the street. Later, I overheard him bragging on the phone. The deal's nearly done. Once Dad signs, we're golden. That was the final straw. The next morning, I sat down with my father. I placed all the documents in front of him, the proof of my work, the evidence of Lucas's meetings, the invoices I had paid with my own savings. My father's hands shook as he flipped through the papers. Dad, I said, my voice breaking, Lucas doesn't care about the bakery. He only sees money. If you sign, you won't just lose the building. You'll lose everything you built, everything you passed down to me. For the first time, doubt clouded his eyes. But he's my son. I'm your daughter, I whispered, and I've been here, every day, every night, fighting for this place while he was out chasing millions. Don't let him take it from us. Tears welled in his eyes, and he nodded slowly. You're right, Hannah, you're right. Days later, Lucas came storming into the bakery, waving papers. Dad, I need you to sign these. It's a business deal, nothing for Hannah to worry about. But this time, Dad didn't budge. He crossed his arms and said, No, Lucas, I know what this is, and I won't let you sell our legacy. Lucas's face turned red. What? You can't be serious. Do you realize how much money we're talking about? Yes, Dad said firmly. And I don't care. This bakery isn't for sale. Not now. Not ever. I stepped out from the back, holding my folder of evidence. And if you try again, Lucas, I'll make sure the developers know exactly who they're dealing with. A man trying to sell what isn't his. The room went silent. Lucas's smug smile faltered. For once, he had no clever comeback. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the bell above it rattled. And just like that, his plan crumbled. The developers pulled out once they realized the bakery wasn't his to sell. Word spread quickly through the community, whispers about Lucas's greed, about how he tried to cash in on the very bakery I had saved. Customers looked at me differently after that, with respect, with gratitude. And my father, for the first time, he looked at me not just with pride, but with recognition. Recognition that I wasn't just his daughter, but the true heir to his legacy. Lucas tried once more to sway him, but Dad shut him down cold. The bakery belongs with Hannah. She's the one who saved it. She's the one who deserves it. And in that moment, I knew I had won. After Lucas stormed out that day, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled, I stood there in the quiet of the bakery, my heart pounding. For months, I had lived with the fear that all my work, all my sacrifice, could be snatched away in an instant. But now, for the first time, I felt safe. Safe because I had stood up. Safe because my father had finally seen the truth. Safe because Lucas, for once in his life, had lost. In the weeks that followed, the bakery carried on like it always did, the smell of fresh bread filling the air, customers lining up for their favorite pastries, my dad greeting old friends with a smile. But something inside me had changed. I wasn't just running the bakery anymore. I was protecting it. I was guarding a legacy that no amount of money could replace. And for the first time, I understood just how much strength I had inside me. Lucas stopped coming around. Word of what he'd tried spread quickly through the community. And the respect people once had for him turned to whispers of disappointment. Meanwhile, the bakery thrived even more. People wanted to support us, to stand behind the daughter who saved her father's dream from betrayal. One night, after closing, I sat with my dad at the front table. He looked at me with tired but proud eyes. "Hannah," he said softly, "you've given me more than I could ever repay. You saved not just this bakery, but me. Our family's story will live on because of you." Tears filled my eyes, and I took his hand. "Dad, you don't owe me anything. This bakery raised me. It taught me who I am. All I did was fight to keep it alive." But deep down, I knew it was more than that. I had fought for myself, for the girl who had always been overlooked, underestimated, told she wasn't enough. I had proved to Lucas, to my father, to the world, and most importantly to myself, that I was strong enough to stand on my own. And that strength wasn't just about bread or business. It was about life now. When I hear the bell over the bakery door ring, I don't just hear the sound of customers walking in. I hear the sound of resilience, the sound of survival, the sound of a legacy that no one, not even my own brother, could steal. So if you're listening to this, if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, if you've ever felt like your hard work could be taken from you in an instant, let me tell you this: you are stronger than they think. You can fight back. You can protect what's yours. I saved my dad's bakery from debt. My brother tried to sell it for millions. But in the end, I was the one who kept it standing. And no amount of money will ever be worth more than that.